Come, let us explore how to avoid fake meditation teachers' red flags. Together, let us relaxingly recite. With so many lamas and authors offering to teach us how to meditate, often for a substantial fee, how are we to know upon which teacher or technique we should rely? Should we rely upon the teacher with the greatest beauty, fame, popularity, acclaim, wealth, resume, credentials, or letters of recommendation? Oh, hell no. The proof of the pudding is in the tasting, and we test the effectiveness of a teacher's guidance in the laboratory of our body and mind. First, we find a teacher, regardless of gender, age, or nationality, and request instruction. Second, we then enthusiastically practice the technique we are given for at least 5 minutes once every 12 hours or so for 7 consecutive days. Note, if we're not up to the task of practicing thusly, then teacher selection is simply not our biggest problem. After the conclusion of the second practice on the 7th day, we look within and ask, one moment, let's see here. There we go, consistency counts. Third, THIRD. There we go. Third, after the conclusion of the second practice on the 7th day, we look within and ask, has this week of practice increased my peace and love? If yes, then mazel tov, you found a teacher from whom you could benefit. If not, then follow up with that teacher. If they won't or can't help you, then to hell with them. Find a better teacher for you at this time. No, the test of a teacher's wisdom. One moment here. Let's see if this fits okay. It does. No, the test of a teacher's wisdom is not whether their teachings align with either our preconceptions or what we've been previously taught. For such a metric will only ensure we never grow beyond where we are at right now. But for goodness sake, let us not put ourselves in the hands of a greedy fool who would sell the Buddha's teachings. For although truly optional donations could be lovely, the greatest offering we could make is simply the enthusiastic application of teachers' instructions. If we wish to follow in the footsteps of the Buddha, be he real or merely archetypical, then we must bring a scientist's curiosity and enthusiasm to be methodical into our spiritual journey. If it sounds inconvenient and maybe even a little scary, there is probably a very good reason for that. But is it worth the inconvenience? The Buddha thought so. This is why Gautama devoted his talents and time to teaching mindfulness and meditation. Having completed our opening lesson, it's time for us to now shift gears. It is General Leia Organa's Saturday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let's play with the latest iteration of very easy meditation. Or let's try this again. Very easy meditation practice text, or sadhana, if you're nasty. The one deciding factor in mindfulness and meditation is this. Are we going to cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, or are we going to compete against it? The method by which most people compete against their autonomic nervous system is by relying upon their medial prefrontal cortex to actively focus and their dorsolateral prefrontal cortex to actively analyze. Exhausting the front of their brain, they increase the probability of presenting with the symptoms of depression, no less triggering their amygdala, the seat of both the anxiety and aggression that undermine a fulfilling life. However, when we cooperate with the two facets of our autonomic nervous system, the amygdala is calmed, and our anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, which is the root of both compassion and love. You see, and so the good news is this. Neither the amygdala nor the prefrontal cortex constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. Case in point, every time we inhale, we are already wired to automatically access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This facet of our autonomic nervous system is wired to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, which is the opposite of focus or concentration. Every time we exhale, we are wired to automatically access the second facet, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is divided between the lower third and approximately the upper third of that same spinal cord. This second facet, or the second half of our autonomic nervous system, has evolved to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining. The three marks of reality or tilakana, if you're fancy. So the question remains, now we understand the peril of competing against our autonomic nervous system and the advantages of cooperating with our autonomic nervous system. How do we cooperate passively? It's really easy. We silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each time we feel air enter our nostrils. And we silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease each time we feel air exit our nostrils. So let's sit in a comfortable and sustainable position, respecting our body's limitations and where we are at this moment. And let's practice. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or philosophy, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions approximately once every 15 minutes or so. So together, let us practice right now. Excuse me. Our job is not to push certain things away. Our job is not to pull other things towards us. Our job is to passively cooperate with the natural function to notice and relax in harmony with our respective inhalations and exhalations. That is the secret of the sudden enlightenment teachings of the Buddha, who insisted that full enlightenment could be accomplished in as little as 7 days. Assuming that full enlightenment is nothing more than getting so good at mindfulness and meditation that one is able to do it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. It doesn't mean we stop experiencing perceptions. It doesn't mean we stop experiencing emotions. It just means we're getting really good at how to deal with life. regardless of what life throws us. Sometimes it throws chocolate at us, sometimes it throws doggy doo at us. Let us consider the archetype known in Sanskrit, or that could be described in Sanskrit, as Samantabandara, Samantabandari, Karamamundara. Samantabandari, the color of a cumulus cloud, is naked. This nudity reminds us of the vulnerability crucial to mindfulness, as is her partner. Her partner, Samantabandara, is depicted as being the color of the azure sky, and as such reminds us that as we relax into our exhalation, that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion, the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could be tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand. This archetype's beauty reminds us that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived and a byproduct of mindfulness as well as meditation. An additional byproduct is the way that our choices, utterances, and deeds could flow from the centered spontaneity symbolized by whose centeredness is symbolized by the stability with which Samantabandara sits, and whose spontaneity is symbolized by the abandon with which Samantabandari sports with Samantabandara in tantric union. Again, the easiest way to cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system of mindfulness and our parasympathetic nervous system of meditation is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this each time we feel air enter our nostrils, as well as silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic syllable ease. So the monosyllabic verb ease each time we feel air leave our nostrils. As always, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions approximately once every 15 minutes or so. So before we begin or continue with meditation, let us consider this. There are humans. And although most humans are raised to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, approximately 10% rebel against this and strive to spend the remainder of their lives being flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Now this, as well as this, are mouthfuls. We could call them patriarchy and matriarchy, or yang or yin, or being like the Buddha, or being like the Buddha's foolish cousin Devadatta, whichever label you prefer. But what kind of happens as we look at the span of human history, recorded human history, is that from time to time there'll be a great luminary, and they will draw to them some students who are eager to be yin. And that's called the proto period. And then eventually there'll be an institutional period where People are drawn to them who are all about power and prestige and elitism and control, and they begin corrupting the teachings. We see that over and over and over again through human history. Take, for instance, morality. In Proto-Buddhism, the 50% of the Eightfold Path dealt with morality, and it was simple. Be kind. Embrace kind intentions. Practice kind communication. Practice kind behavior. And even perform kind commerce. Just be kind. No one's going to be perfect, but give yourself permission to learn and grow and become kinder and kinder and kinder. It was very, very simple. The late Karma Chakme Rinpoche said, hey, the essence of morality is nothing more than non-violence. And as we see, the correct practice of mindfulness and meditation makes the remaining 6 folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path happen automatically. So just by practicing mindfulness and meditation, we will experience greater understanding of the wisdom of letting go. We will experience the 4 folds of love that I just mentioned, and we will experience the effortless effort of flowing from love-centered spontaneity. Members of patriarchy want to make things just as difficult as possible, if not impossible. They delight in making things impossible. Matriarchy does the opposite. They want to make the path as easy, as brief, and as pleasurable as possible. Some people are drawn to patriarchal teachers, some people are drawn to matriarchal teachers, and some people change as they evolve and ebb and flow in the spiritual path. Let's practice. So we see the flow of proto-traditions and institutional corruption over and over and over again. Even in China, we saw proto-Chan or proto-Zen, and then institutional Chan or institutional Zen. A great example of proto-Chan could be Bodhidharma or Gyatso, who gave us the Song of Enlightenment. When people began teaching in riddles and physically abusing their students, those were symptoms of the corruption of institutionalism. Going all the way back to before the author of the Song of Enlightenment wrote the Song of Enlightenment. During his days as a student, he was taught this very simple method of perception and cessation. We could combine that with our breathing, silently and mentally reciting perception as we breathe in, or noticing as we breathe in, and we could silently and mentally recite cessation or relaxing or letting go or ease during our exhalation. So as much as I would like to tell you how very special and awesome I am, these teachings I give you are very old and have been practiced by great luminaries who came before me. This is a simple, easy path. Elitists are more concerned with how they look and how they feel about themselves than actually mastering the path and helping others do likewise. That is why elitists always make things more difficult. And this is not unique to religion or spirituality. Even Einstein, the physicist, the Nobel laureate, explained that any educated idiot can make things more difficult, complicated, and more violent, but that it takes a lot of courage and a little bit of genius to move in the opposite direction. As long as there have been humans, there has been this tendency to make things difficult for others. When many, many, many years ago, in the ancient days of the early 80s, I was a member of a Jewish fraternity known as Zeta Beta Tau, or ZBT. And it was observed that there's nothing more vicious than a neophyte, someone who is no longer a pledge but a new brother. That they are the most sadistic towards the next generation of pledges. And I once had a conversation with a guy named Pat, awesome guy, the president of the chapter. And he said, we can ask ourselves, why should they have it easier than I did? Or we can ask themselves, how can we make it easier for them than it was for us? And that blew my little furry mind. That was part of my spiritual awakening. I learned that there was something other than competition. There was something other than cruelty. There was kindness and there was cooperation. And it was espoused by someone who I really respected intellectually and spiritually and physically. This guy was he was like Paul Bunyan. Anyway, this is a guy who in the summers to earn extra money, he'd work on fishing boats in Alaska. This is a man's man. And to hear this man's man talk about cooperation and kindness really sowed the seeds of enlightenment for me. And I hope my tale of him has done likewise for you. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 and a quarter hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class as well as group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.